Economic development is a key part of being able to move Mississippi forward. And today we have a wonderful panel for y'all to hear from that talks about what it takes, the cooperation between many different groups that are out there that make economic development possible. And as you know, in the last few years, we've had a great run of landing some big economic development projects here in the state of Mississippi. And the gentlemen that are on the stage with me this morning all have played a part in that in some fashion.
The big ones, the medium ones, and the small ones all generally have some of the same similarities, okay? And if you can do the right things right, the things you need to do, if you're good at what you're doing, then maybe you can land a big one, okay? But in fairness, most places here can't land the big one. It's just a matter of fact. It's not going to happen, okay? Unless you've got a lot of things going in your favor, okay? And the first thing you I'm sorry, guys, I mean, it's reality, okay? Not everybody gets the big deals, okay? But here's what I'm going to tell you, kind of analogy before we start talking. We did the sports analogy a while ago. Most of you in the room, I'm looking at you, are old enough or sportsy enough, and in the South that includes the girls too, so you don't have to worry about this, to remember the Washington Redskins and the Hogs, right? Some of y'all going to get a nod from somebody? Bart Wise knows this story, okay? Matter of fact, Bart Wise, one of my former chairmen out there in the crowd, when we started coming up with ideas, he said, don't tell nobody. Don't tell nobody what we're doing. Keep it a secret, they'll steal it. I said, Bart, if you're going to have one idea in your life, guard that son of a gun like who would have thought it. I'm going to have about 3 or 4 a week. By the time they figure out what we're doing this week, we're going to be doing something else next week, and it really doesn't matter. I said, I subscribe to a different philosophy, okay? The Washington Redskins and the Hogs have a lot of similarities in economic development. Everybody, seriously, raise your hand if you remember Getty, I know you do. Washington Redskins and the Hogs, okay? Aside from having basically an all-pro line, an all-pro quarterback and an all-pro running back in Rigo, right? What else? What was their signature play? This is interactive. I'll come out in the crowd if you don't answer, okay? What was their signature play? Somebody. We are in the Southeastern Conference football world, right? It's called the stretch. The play was called the counter tray. You heard Madden. They're going to run the counter tray. Basically, here's how it works, okay? The quarterback comes under center. He's got his fullback, halfback, he was rigging, so he's a fullback, behind him. You got the tight end starting on the left-hand side. Quarterback goes into cadence. The tight end starts going in motion to the right side, okay? As soon as the ball is snapped, the quarterback gives a fake to the left. The running back gives a fake to the left. At that time, both the guard and tackle pull. What happens? You got a fat-ass center, 2 fat-ass guards, and 2 fat-ass tackles out front with the tight end, plowing away for a fat-ass fullback to get 2 or 3 or 4 yards, okay? And here's what I'm going to tell you. It works. One of the best middle linebackers in the world, Michael Singletary, that played for the Bears. Y'all remember him? He always had that look, okay? So he was deer in the headlights when he was playing Washington. They would go up to Mike Singletary. It was 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, and they said, Mike, you know we're going to run counter tray, and we're going to run it right over your ass, and they did, okay? So I will tell you that if you master, and that's a very simple thing. This plays, look at it on paper. It's very simple. If you can master that and do it better and better and better, then all of a sudden the game slows down and everything gets kind of easy. A little bit of talk about the MEC program, okay? How many of you 10, 15 years ago ever even thought about Columbus, Mississippi unless you're thinking about the pilgrimage? Anybody? Anybody? How many of you kind of know Columbus GTR is on the radar screen right now? West Point, Columbus, okay, so we've done a little bit of better, right? Here's the fundamental thing that changed the Golden Triangle. Tennessee Valley Authority came out with a MEC program. Here's what they said. Every bean field, every cornfield, every soybean patch, every group of catfish ponds on the edge of your town, my town, any town, ain't going to be where the next Toyota, Nissan, Mercedes-Benz goes, okay? They said it's got to have some criteria there. They hired a national consultant, site consultant, McCallum Sweeney, said you write the criteria and you score it. They came up with things that made a super site super. Had to have class 1 railroad. Like for you to have 2. had to be within 50 miles of an airport, have to be an entertainment area, have to be 1,500 acres, 1,000 developable, on and on and on and on and on. At the end of the day, they presented this to the whole 80,000 square miles of TVA, all are parts of 7 states, and 2 towns got certified, Columbus and Hoptown, Kentucky. Within just months of getting certified, what is now SDI, the steel mill, came a-knocking. Because the dead Indians and the bug and bunnies were done, the engineering was done, the planning was done, the floodplain stuff was done, everything was ready to go. In fact, the county had already issued notice of intent to issue bonds in the amount of $20 million to support that project. The rest is history. The day we broke ground on that steel mill, I told one of my staffers, Brenda Lathan, I said, take 30 days off. Go buff your puff, do whatever you girls do for relaxation for 30 days. Okay? Pedicure and manicure guys on the back row, you're thinking wrong. Okay? She took 30 days off. Her first day back on the job, she signed her second option, her first option on her second mega site. Within a period of months, we did that, and PACCAR came a-calling. Okay? Go figure. Go figure. TVA then did away with the mega site program. After Volkswagen, after Toyota, after Vaki Chemical, after Dow Corning Hemlock, after Toyota, after SDI, and after PACCAR, they said there's no more good sites in the valley, we're done. We knew that wasn't true. We found one at West Point, and we followed their process just like we did on the other 2, and we identified and did the same things on the Prairie Belt Power site. Within less than 6-8 months from the time we unveiled the Prairie Belt Power site, Yokohama had selected that site from 3,100 counties in the country, added up. That's every state except Alaska and Hawaii were in the search. 26 Mississippi communities got invitations. 19 of them filled out the paperwork. Okay? Now, they didn't say it's Yokohama. They said it's Project Triathlon. Well, all of a sudden, lightning struck for the 3rd time. Guess what? 2 communities have been invited to submit megasites in the Tennessee Valley Authority. We've been invited to submit a 3rd one, and the reason it's pending up there is within the next few weeks we expect to announce the 4th megasite, 3rd TVA certified. I will tell you that probably lightning can strike 4 times because all of the preparation's been done. Okay? This stuff is simple. It's simple, but it's costly. If you've got an organization that's got a $150,000 budget, and the lady that used to work at the school for the superintendent answering the phone at the central office is your secretary, and the retired banker is your economic developer, you're probably not going to win, okay? Because it takes, I'm serious. How many big deals locate in those towns? None. The budgets are too small. The resources are too small. You got to have the people. I can't even read my own stuff. You got to have the people. You got to have the utilities. You got to have all those things in place. Well, we got power out there. Look, folks, it ain't just about having a power line out there. It's about, and it's not just about the rate. Big projects are like fat people. They eat a lot, okay? They drink a lot. They do. They use a lot of electricity, they use a lot of water, they use a lot of sewer, they use a lot of gas. So just having stuff out there and ready doesn't get you there. You got to have that educational support, and I'm not really talking K through 12 as much as I am the vocational and the engineering sides at the universities. You got to have that. And it's very rare, okay, probably impossible, that a big project's going to locate somewhere that has a highway. Now, it's going to have a highway, but that can't be the only thing it has. Okay, a big project, if you look, whether they use it or not, in the case of PACCAR, they don't use rail. Why in the world would a company like PACCAR not use rail? Anybody? Hush. Anybody? Are y'all awake? Why wouldn't they use rail? They're in the truck business. They don't like trains, okay? They said, we'll pay more to ship it by truck than put it on a train. We don't want trains. But most places want an airport, they want roads, they want a waterway if they can get it, and they airport, railroads, roads, what did I say, 4 of them. Airport, railroads, roads, and water. Yeah, want it all, want it all. Then you got to have product. Go online to MDA, pick your town, and look and see how many acres your town, your region, your place has available for industrial development. I will tell you that most of the people in the room will be lucky if you got 500 acres in the aggregate in a site. You got 10 over here, you got 35 over here. Oh, don't forget this 5-acre industrial site, okay? 5-acre industrial site. Well, we'd just soon land 10 jobs paying 50 as one employing 500. How many of you ever heard that? Raise your hand if you heard that. Y'all aren't even being truthful. Thank you. I'm going to tell you, a better philosophy is get one that employs 500 and you'll get 10 that'll employ 52, okay? But look at the sites. You gotta have, to bid the big projects, you gotta have the big sites. That's why these sites are 1,500, 1,000 acres developable. You gotta have the sites. We bought, infrastructured, and developed 9,000 acres in 14 years. If we get this next mega site certification, it'll be 1 super site designation, 3 mega site certification, or 4, mega sites, 3 of them certified by TVA. Now let's go to resources and funding. Again, that $150,000 budget, that staff's probably not going to win. They just can't win. They don't have the resources. Without telling 1,000 war stories, some of y'all have heard this in the past, it's been on the news. You know, we had to make a decision on Yokohama within a 24-hour period to get a Sikorsky 76 helicopter in there. We didn't know if it was going to rain, didn't know if we were going to be able to use it. We had to make a decision one Sunday afternoon if we wanted to pay $27,500 for a helicopter for the day, okay? A $150,000 budget with 2 people staff can't do that. It's impossible, okay? To be successful, to land these big ones, you're going to have an adequate staff. Now, I don't subscribe that you got to have 27 employees, okay? But so y'all know, we represent 3 counties and we got a staff of 8. And those 8 people are pretty much humping it every day doing what they're doing, okay? You got to have access to capital. You got to have access to resources. Those supervisors, those city councilmen, those mayors need to understand that we're buying deals, okay? Now, I'm probably the only economic developer you've ever met that will say it out loud, and I'll say it on TV. Yeah, we buy the deals. Now, you're not going to buy a deal if you got a crappy site. You're not going to buy a deal if you got crappy labor. You're not going to buy a site if it hasn't got the infrastructure they need. But at the end of the day, those last 2, those final 2s, it's kind of like that Geico commercial where they're checking out, and they said, don't get an auctioneer for your checkout person, and they're bidding, and the guy goes. That's kind of what we're doing. It takes resources. You need to make sure that the infrastructure's there, plans for the infrastructure to be there. What we have done, and we've used it very successfully in the 3 counties that we represent, Mississippi is a reverse referendum state, okay? Which means the Board of Supervisors or the Mayor, City Council can decide they're going to issue bonds for economic development. They don't have to have a project. We go to all of our governments, we get them to do a notice of intent, we get them to go through public hearing, we give the public time to go out and get their 1,500 signatures to call an election. And if they don't, the public hearings close and the county's got the authority to issue bonds for 24 months on a project. We always have dry powder in each and every one of our counties. The day you walk in my door, I'm going to have bonded indebtedness authorized and in an amount sufficient enough to recruit a big deal. Lowndes County, at their next meeting coming up, will authorize $30 million in bonds just to have the authority sitting on the shelf, ready to go, just in case, okay? So, pretty tough. The last thing I want you to know is attitude, okay? This is on my email. My former chairman got me a bumper sticker and brought it to my office. Live every day like your ass is on fire. You can't, I know you think I'm the damn lunch talk for entertainment, I guess. I don't, but seriously, guys, you've got to have somebody in that chair that wakes up every day, that staff, those elected officials, that team that wake up every single day working to do a deal, working to do a deal. Now, the little deals and medium deals, they're going to come, but these big deals, it's got to be made the priority in the organization, and you got to keep it being the priority in the organization. I'm going to close with this. You see that license plate up there? That's mine. I bought that from the Department of Revenue. What does it mean?
Second equals last.
Second equals last. See, we don't have the fortune to be in the tennis business or the golf business or the NASCAR business. See, second place in our business doesn't pay. Okay? If you come in second place, you know, they're gonna say, boy, he's in the business 20 years. He really worked hard, okay? Second place pays nothing. There's no money for the schools. There's no money for the city. There's no money for the county. There's less funding for the Economic Development Organization. And mamas and daddies got less money to pay for dance lessons and buy bass boats to take Junior to go bass fishing, okay? So it's really got to be an attitude. And that's kind of how we approach this. Thank you.
What I will tell you, the most important thing that you could take away from today is if you're a community and you've got a project that comes in the door and it's worth having, assume you're competing with Joe Max. And that's probably the most important thing you can hear, because if you're not competing with this Joe Max, you're competing with a Joe Max in another state. Now, there aren't very many of them, I will promise you that. But you need to realize that you better have your ducks in a row if you're going to win the deal, because he's exactly right. There are no points for second place in this business. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Continental project that I know all of you are familiar with. You'll note that I've only been here for less than a year. And this project went on for 2 years, and it was announced a couple of months ago. So the math isn't that difficult to know that there were a lot of people involved in this project way before I got here. I think the only reason that I'm up here is because they couldn't figure out exactly of all those people that were involved in this project, which one of them should present, so they picked the new guy. But I'll also tell you, I think my role was not to mess it up. So I'm thankful that at least I didn't mess it up. I'm not going to say there weren't some close calls. But the important thing is just talk about a little bit about this project, and I think we can get us caught up on time just a little bit. But Continental was tire, obviously, that went to Hinds County and Clinton. It was a Mike Mullis project, and so many of you in the industry know who Mike Mullis is. And he is probably the most difficult site selection consultant you can work with. Mike would actually be proud for me to say that. If he sends out an RFI, it's probably going to be a few hundred pages, and it's going to go out on Christmas Eve, and he wants you to respond, if you're lucky, by the day after Christmas. So, but it's an incredibly intense process. And so if you get a Mullis project, as you've heard already from these guys, you better be ready long before you ever get a Mullis project. If the first time you decide you're going to fill out an RFI is when you get one of these, you're really wasting your time, to be honest with you. But the first thing that will happen, and this is, as Brian said, a site selection process, but quite honestly, it's a site elimination process. Site selectors and companies are looking for reasons to eliminate you because they want to get it down to a manageable number of sites and a manageable number of states. So don't give them an excuse to eliminate you, which can be missing the deadline. It can be just a number of things that are really just simple things if you think about it. But that's why you've got to be on your A game when you're filling out these RFIs. And I think Chad mentioned that earlier today. But you'll see there are a lot of people involved in this project, and a lot of organizations involved in this project, and that's why I'm not going to go through all of them and name them out, but you can just look, and we were just part of a larger team. Of course, Hinds County and the Jackson Alliance and MDA played significant roles, really more of the lead roles in this project. But you can see from the first phase, you get this huge RFI, then you're looking at probably 10 states, 150 sites or more. And so you've got a huge number. So it's a site elimination process. So you want to make sure you stay in the game is what you want to do to live to the to actually get to the next step. The next step for a large economic development project, and honestly, a large project as opposed to a medium-sized project is probably just more zeros and more volumes of paperwork that you're going to have to do and more money that you're going to have to spend. But the second phase, the company will actually visit the site. Sometimes the consultant does it by himself, sometimes with the engineers. And so then you're starting to spend money. This is the phase where you've got to have all your due diligence in place, but that's just the start of this game. Because then you're going to start spending money on helicopters, on ATVs. I'm not going to name names, but I understand there was also some entertainment that was set up with a band that was supposed to look like it might have been an actual just venue that somebody walked by, because the principal with the company said he really likes live music and that type of thing, and so actually walking by, oh, look at that, there's a band. Oh, it looks like it's the kind of music you like, isn't it? You want to step in for a second? So I understand a number of friends got some free drinks that night. So but the point here is that you really do have to go the extra mile. And for those communities that if you're sitting back waiting for the next visit, for the next call, you're probably not going to get it because there are other communities out doing this. Next phase, though, is you've got to have the site. And you've heard that ad nauseum from Joe Max just told you. And you can't just have a site. You've got to have the due diligence, or a lot of the due diligence already done for these large projects. And then you've got to spend some money and show them what it's going to look like. So you've got to spend some money on the renderings. And more than likely, the due diligence is great, but you're going to have to do a lot more because the borings aren't going to be in the right location. The infrastructure you just designed is not adequate. The site isn't big enough. So by the way, you got to go add 500 acres to this site. So it's not just being prepared, it's the flexibility, and as Joe Max said, you've got to have the staff with the knowledge and the ability to know how to get this done very quickly. And then the dating phase that's when they're getting serious, and that is when the bidding war starts. And it's not just, a lot of it is incentives, not going to lie to you, that is an important part of this. But also this gets to the stage of what are you willing to do to win this project, and whether it's redesigning your entire workforce program. I know on a Mullis project, when I was in another state, the guy, it's actually the guy I mentioned earlier, he just built a brand new tech park, put all the infrastructure in, all the roads in, water, sewer, everything, a beautiful 250-acre tech park with fountains in the front of it. The consultant came in and said, you're going to have to tear it all up because it was a Briggs & Stratton small engine project. And the economic developer said, okay. and he landed this very large 700-employee project because he went in, tore up millions of dollars worth of infrastructure they had already put in. So you're looking at numerous site visits. Obviously, MDA played a huge critical role in this project. But if you look at all of the different organizations there at the bottom, the other thing I would leave you with is this is a team sport. I mean, you cannot do it by yourself. And it's intensely competitive. I looked it up just before I came up here. There are 3,144 counties, I think, in the United States, over 19,000 municipalities that are incorporated. A lot of those groups, if not most of those, especially at the county level, have economic development organizations. There are only a few hundred projects each year of 100 jobs or more, and of this type of project, there are only a handful. So you can understand, and then you've got people like Joe Max that win a lot of them. So there are a lot of communities who never see or land any of these projects. And so this is the dating phase towards the end where you've really got to get a warm fuzzy, or at least the company has to get a warm fuzzy with you because it comes down to trust as well. Are you going to deliver what you've told them you can deliver? And that's where this becomes extremely important. And this is the final elimination phase, and this is where it hurts really badly because I would rather be 20th in a project than second. I hate being second. Those really hurt. So you really don't want to be second. So that's why at the end, you really do whatever you can. If you decide early on if it's a project you want, and if you want it, then you go after it. And you decide early on what you're willing to do. And you certainly wouldn't go beyond that, but don't hold back either. And finally, the marriage phase, and this was announced a couple of months ago. And again, it was great leadership from the governor and from the legislature and from all the entities that were involved in this project. But I would just say that in closing thoughts, the site is obviously critical. If you don't have a site, then you're really not in the game. So you need to decide what you want. And not every community needs a mega site. If you don't have a mega workforce, you probably don't need a mega site. And so I think that's important. So for a lot of communities out there, you just need a site and figure out what that is. Obviously, we need a strong MDA and local economic development groups because that's who is doing all the heavy lifting. And then finally, you got to be willing to invest money and time in the process to win the deal. And it does take that kind of investment in order to be successful. And going forward, and I think you've heard of thousands and thousands of economic development organizations seeking these same projects. So there are going to be a lot of losers in this game. But there is a very clear process to follow if you do want to win. So that's all I have for now. And Jonathan, actually, Scott, I think I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
To land the big project, they're totally different projects than the smaller ones. The resources needed, the staff needed, the land, the utilities that are needed. Take the average deal, multiply it by a factor of something, and you'll come up with what it takes to land the big one. They're projects on steroids.
My message was primarily talking about the Continental Tire Project landing in Hinds County and what it took to land that project from the standpoint of a community being prepared, from teamwork, from the state level down to the community level and the utilities, and what it takes to really put together a deal to win a big project.
What is your advice to economic developers throughout Mississippi to be able to be successful?
I think a couple of things. One is to be aggressive, and you have to know who you are and what you have to offer from an asset standpoint. You have to be aggressive because there's so much competition out there today. And then second is be prepared. You have to have a site in order to compete in today's economy for these types of projects. It's not enough to have a greenfield site and say we'll come back and prepare it. You have to be ready.
Our theme this year for the Mississippi Economic Council is Transforming Mississippi. The Mississippi Economic Council, lovingly known as MEC, we have members across the state. We have over 11,000 folks in our organization. And what we do is we work with our community leaders, our business leaders to transform Mississippi. That's our theme for this year, Transforming Mississippi. So we look forward to making a difference in education. We work in education. We work with the STAR students, STAR teacher. We also work with the Mississippi Scholars Program, the Tech Master Program. So we're really excited about the difference that we're making in Mississippi in education. We're making great strides. We also work with economic development, making sure our state is a great place for businesses to come and that our existing businesses can grow and flourish. So we've got a great program of work, and we're going to be transforming our state.
Economic development's a team sport, and it takes everybody, and MEC plays a vital role in really putting a lot of things together. They're the ones that really bring people together, like you're seeing here. This is a diverse group from all over the state, and diversity in every sense, and we're here together making Mississippi move forward.
MEC is one of our partners. We appreciate them putting this event together. We expect them being a champion for economic development throughout the state. You know, I represent a 3-county area. A lot of my peers represent smaller areas. This gives us a statewide footprint, statewide exposure, and statewide influence.
MEC.ms is our website, just MEC.ms, and all the information about what's going on around the state, plus all the information about what MEC does and how you can be a part of it is right there.